Well, I think there are problems you cannot solve at the individual level, and in all my efforts to try to put in both research work and trying to mobilize broad citizen participation in democratic process, what I've seen is that um, the insecurity you see around us many times take the form of I don't care until it comes to my doorstep. And that's what Nigerians do. So when it's happening to a local government that is not yours, you don't usually take interest. And you want to stay aloof, you want to pretend that you don't hear about it. Or sometimes you hear about it on the radio and then you shake off your head and then shrug it off until it comes to you. So at that individual level, we cannot address insecurity. And that's why the biggest component of my work now on insecurity is to mobilize citizens to demand for better, is to mobilize citizens to act together. For instance, when people are killed in Mangu, I want to see people in River State take it up as a very serious issue. When people are killed in Ekiti State, I want to see people in Anambra take it up as serious issues, because people usually don't take it up serious until it leaves Mangu and then happens in their state, and then they begin to cry. And when they are crying, they are hoping that other Nigerians cry with them. But wait a minute, other Nigerians don't cry with them. So it seems as if in our isolated or disparate groups, units, many attackers, and in some cases they have very seeming, they seem like they are disorganized on the surface. But if you go deep down, you find out that they have a lot of coherence and that their attacks are very sophisticated and then all of those things. So I think my point is to tell Nigerians, look, there are problems you can't solve at the individual level. And while you are waiting for it to come to a village near you, don't wait until it comes. Start fighting it now. And that's the best chance we have at going at this issue.
Now, talking about fighting it now, aren't we just ordinary Nigerians? Because if you ask me, I don't know if you own a gun, because I don't own one. And so many other persons don't own. So when you say start fighting it now, what do you think is that magic wand that will make it happen? We're not security operatives. We're not trained to combat these guys when they come.
Okay, yes, so when I say that, I thank you for the opportunity to clarify that, because what I do mean is not for citizens to bear arms. I mean, I am still studying the literature on, gun pot, and you've seen that it's a topical issue to debate around now. I'm still gathering matter. For now, and I think my attitude to that is that insecurity is better left in the hands of the government. But then this is an ongoing research, and when I have enough evidence to make up my mind on the issue, I'm willing to look at what the data says. But for now, when I say citizens should fight, you understand that in a democracy, there are two sides of every democratic arrangement. There is the demand side of governance, and there is the supply side of governance. Those who are at the executive level, at the legislative level, and at the judiciary, their role is to supply governance, and it may include the police, military, and all of those things. But those of us in a democracy as citizens have our role cut out for us, because there is nowhere in the world where you find democracy where you find that the supply side is ahead of the demand side. For instance, if you don't demand, you don't get. If you demand for 10 things, they may give you 3 and you are still demanding. But if you don't demand at all, it's assumed that you like what you are getting. And many Nigerians are banking on the assumed benevolence of the leaders, on the assumed benevolence of the elected representatives. But that's not going to happen. And so if you see that after each killing in, say, Mangu, local government, and we give the government 3 days and nothing happens, and 1 million Nigerians are on the streets demanding, and 1 million Nigerians are calling their lawmakers, and they are speaking the lawmakers, the governors, what are you doing about this? And Nigerians are restive and are demanding that this must stop. It will stop, or at least the government will put up effort. But when they kill people like this, nobody talks about it. We just shrug it off and pretend that it didn't happen. And then since we are not disturbing the government doesn't feel the need to act. And so that's why I think now, for instance, with what happened in Ekiti State, if there was a shutdown of Lagos State, or at least Ekiti State, to demand accountability on the killings of those 2 monarchs, believe me, the government actors will take it. Not that it will restore the lives of the 2 monarchs who died, unfortunately, by the way, but at least it will prevent further bloodshed and will cause the government to sit up, either to engage the actors, because look, these people don't live in the air. They walk around us. And many of the instances, for instance, I'm painting a picture for you now. To successfully carry out an attack in Mangu, you need a lot of logistics and planning. They come with Bajaj motorcycles, and people in Port Harcourt, I don't know whether they've banned Okada there, but people would at least know what Bajaj motorcycles are. They come with sometimes 250 Bajaj motorcycles. They come with AK-47s. They come with RPGs. They come with dynamites. They blow down churches. They blow down buildings. They come with other explosives, right? And for you to just the ammunition alone, and sometimes they will expel more than 1,000 to 1,500 rounds of ammunition in one local government, in one community alone. And how much do they sell weapons? How much do they sell armaments? How much do they sell bullets? And if you start studying how much they sell bullets and how many bullets they expend in one attack, you will see that this is not a ragtag militia doing this. And so the coordination of moving in droves, knowing what communities to attack, and then when they do coordinated attack that they are doing here and doing here, when you study this, you see that there are a lot of organization that goes into this. How can people drive in 200 bikes, come into a community, attack, and go back home, and nothing is happening? And in many of the instances, they attack, and then the next day, the attackers are withdrawing their money in Nigerian banks. In Nigerian banks. And you have the Nuban, you have these, what do you call those CBN thing again? You have the 10 digits, you have the, I think, what do they call that number you have to provide if you want to open an account?
Okay, are you talking about the NIN?
You have the NIN, you have there is the other one that BVN. You have the BVN, you have NIN, you have SIM cards linked to, and all of these things, they are not able to. As we speak today, terrorists still do open bank counter transactions. And that's why we're telling Nigerians now, what are the banks doing? What is the Attorney General doing? What are the fintechs doing? What is the NCC's role in all of this? And that's a huge question that Nigerians need to start asking and start demanding. Don't wait till it comes to your community before you start crying. Let us cry with our brothers in Ekiti. Let us cry with our brothers in the Middle Belt. That's my attitude to these issues.
Do you think there is sabotage in all of this?
Yes, there is, because for some reason, and this is not just my opinion. In fact, I was reading the governor of Plateau State, who received his counterpart governors, PDP governors, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, who donated 100 million to him. And then he was saying something, and I agree with him, that at some point it felt as if the last administration had a lot of sympathies for the attackers and for the assailants. I felt, in fact, at some point, it felt as if Nigerian government has been made to be an official state sponsor of terrorism, because there were a lot of ideological similarities between people in government houses and people in the bush. And because of that, the government treats some of these things with kid gloves. The government treats some of these things with, we levity with, it's as if sometimes that the government is encouraging them. But I now see, despite the fact that there is a new sheriff in town, who I did not vote, by the way, but I see that on this particular issue, at least you don't have that radioactive fundamental religious thing with the current occupant of Aso Rock, and that's a good thing to have. And so what I'm inviting Nigerians now is to exploit the ideological difference that exists between Tinubu and his predecessor to see how we can bring an end to some of these issues. And one of the core public policy proposals we have on the ground today is for Nigerian federal government to declare what is happening an act of terrorism. An act of terrorism, so that you don't have the vice president going to Mangu where people have been killed to tell them to live peaceably with terrorists. Nobody goes to any community that is attacked by Boko Haram to tell them live peaceably with your neighbor. But Nigerian authorities keep telling people leave, so people are wielding machetes, AK-47, killing people, and the Nigerian soldiers cannot go after them. Look, until you declare them terrorists, even the military cannot go after them in some sense, because you cannot do area bombardments, because what the government media will accuse you is killing innocent pastoralists. But now, people who are carrying AK-47, the government should make it clear, according to our laws. Go and look at Section 3 of the Anti-Terrorism Act of 2022, look at Section 48, look at Section 47, look at Section 49. The law is clear on what is terrorism, and we are now inviting the Attorney General to invoke the laws that have been, the powers that have been given to him, to declare this an act of terrorism. That will not stop it, but at least it gives the soldiers the legal tools to prosecute their battle. When you have given them the legal tools, you back it up with political tools. Finally, on this particular issue of compromise, you remember CG Musa, who is the chief of defense staff. There was an interview he conducted, he granted shortly after the killings in Bokos, the Christmas Eve killings, and he said he was speaking tongue-in-cheek because he's a military man. But if you deduce his statement, he was saying that these things, there are a lot of political connotations to these things, because the soldiers will not go after the person the government seems to consider a friend. And that's the simple truth. So you seem to have that there are attackers in the bush who enjoy the sympathy and sometimes active protection of people in government.
Okay, now I'm talking about the statement that was made by the vice president when that's in the person of Kashim Shettima when he visited Plateau State. Do you think that the statement was out of place?
It smacks of mischief, and I think that he just went to Plateau to dance on the victims to dance on the graves of victims. And that's what I think of him. And by the way, his credentials are in the open. People know about his affinity, both in the past and maybe he can argue that in the past. But if he wants to argue that, he could come out and argue that. But we have heard of his. For instance, he's being a governor in Borno State, and his credentials are in the open. You remember that there was a terrorist mastermind that was arrested in his lodge, and so those things are open. So when those kind of people come back to attack a community, and someone who enjoys or who has been suspected to have that sympathy for terrorists is going to tell them, oh, live peaceably with your neighbors. No, you're muddling up waters. This is not the case of two people fighting. One person has a political agenda, an ideological agenda, and sometimes a religious agenda, and they are pursuing it with zest. Look, what is happening is pure act of terrorism, but in subterfuge. You see, when Boko Haram came up, Boko Haram clearly stated, this is our goal, we don't want this, we don't want that, this is our leader. And after each attack, they will go to the media to claim, we did this. But today, you have that they quickly saw that effort was not working. So you still find the same people, the same thing, the same modus operandi, the same attack, the same weapon, the same everything. It is just that they now pretend to be amorphous. They pretend not to have a leader. They pretend not to have a political goal. They pretend not to have a goal. They don't state what their goals are. But if you see the way they go about attacking communities, ransacking communities, and after each community they occupy, and then do you now think that they will settle in that community? No, they will leave like 20 rural settlements there and move on to sack the next community. And they are sacking these communities in Plateau, in Nasarawa, in some parts of Nasarawa State, in Taraba State, in Adamawa, in Newman local government in Adamawa, in fact in the whole of Middle Belt, but it's coming down south. And we are telling people, don't just wait till it comes to your community. Do something about these issues. Let us take it up with our government. Last year, you saw 1 million man marches in the streets trying to, demonstrate solidarity with a particular political leader. And today, people are being killed, and you don't see people trying to organize 1 million man marches. And I am not just saying this to condemn, because you of course know of our efforts to conduct a protest, a peace walk in Abuja here, and it was violently shut down by the Nigerian police, and it was violently shut down by the military. Because we got all the, not that we needed any approval to have a peace walk in Abuja, but just out of courtesy, we told the police, this is who we are, these are the organizers, this is our planned route, and this is what we are doing. And we secured an arrangement with them. We have a letter that was addressed to them that was acknowledged, and in our meetings with them, they promised us to give us two truckloads of mobile policemen to accompany us to ensure that that our protest or our peace walk was orderly. And just 9 minutes, we have done every arrangement we need to do, traced out our travel path, and just that minute they said, oh no, Chima, you cannot do that again. The president is having a function somewhere near where you're holding your peaceful walk, and because of that, soldiers and mobile policemen will cordon off the whole area. And indeed, the whole area was cordoned off with police and mobile and military trucks. And good news, the president did not even leave his residence that day. The president did not have any public function that day, let alone having public function close to where we are doing an event. So you see the way it works. But essentially, Nigerians have to come out and aggressively protest these issues, whether at the local level, at the state level, at the regional level, or at the national level. People must cry. And then if we have done our best, and we know that we have done our best and it fails to work, then we can now advocate for self-defense. But for now, it has not gotten to that because there are a lot of political tools at our disposal that we have not used.
Now, talking about Plateau State, we did hear from the people who live there, the residents of the community, the people of the community, saying that the people that carried out the attack, they know them. So if they know them, then they're not terrorists, or maybe they're not. They don't have an agenda. I don't know, because you were saying that when you were talking about the vice president, you did at some point wanted to take a hit at him. But if these people are members of this community, what do you have to say about it?
No, they are not members of the communities. They might have been integrated members of the community. So let me paint a picture of what happens here. So people come in and they are pastoralists, and they are usually, they start off by being peace loving, and they can stay in your community for 20 years. And I'm saying this as a warning to all those communities harboring this kind of people, that they will come for you. Because when it was happening in other local government, Mangu people felt that, oh, when you tell Mangu people, they say, oh, our Fulanis are peace loving, these are peace loving people. But they stay in your area, they know the terrain, they understand the terrain. And when they start attacking, usually they get help from people who are their fighters. They come in droves. And when they come, the locals will take them around to people's houses, pointing at people. And people can identify this. People can say, Oga, is this you? This is the same person we used to share water in this same community. This is the same person we've lived in this community for 7 years, 10 years, 15 years. This is the same person that was giving birth to in this community. And so these people come as innocent pastoralists, and they stay, they study the terrain, they know you're in and out. They know all the avenues. They in fact know the bushes more than the landowners in some places. And when they start attacking, they attack. And when the attackers are gone, the people who took them around and sometimes have some weapons with them stay in the communities. There are places you go to interview people, and they say, I know the guy that shot me in the leg. He still comes to the market every market day, and the government will not arrest him. And when the community plans to do a reprisal attack, the military will swoop in and disarm the locals. But the people who attack them are known, and the government will not go after them.
Now, it's interesting that this is coming up, because I know for sure that you've extensively visited these communities in both Benue and Plateau State and some other locations that these attacks have actually happened. Let's cast our minds back to the 24-hour curfew that was put, placed or pronounced by the governor. And then in Mango community, the 24-hour curfew that was pronounced was defiled, and they went ahead to attack. Do you think there's complacency in the part of the security agents? Because we know how curfews are. When there is total shutdown, people don't move around. But in that case, what would you say must have done wrong?
Well, I don't think I would have agreed with the executive governor in pronouncing the curfew, but I think I understand why he did what he did, despite the fact that I don't agree with him. So what had happened is that people had come into community to kill the same way they kill, and then the youth leaders and the women felt, look, this is enough, and they mobilized themselves to go and attack, do reprisal attack. And in that instance, people now began to tell Muslims, oh, it's a Muslim and a Christian thing. Christians are attacking Muslims, Muslims are attacking Christians. So they brought in the religious thing to muddle up issues. And they riled even the indigenous Muslim population. Because they riled, and it became a religious conflagration. Because when people are angry, if that anger is not managed, they can escalate issues. And so instead of attacking the people who are perpetrators, because of anger, when people start protesting or when people start turning into mob action, they can start overreact. And then you saw even with that, many many hungry youths took the opportunity to start looting shops, start burning houses, when they come to your shop, they loot it, they take Indomie, they take noodles, they take everything. So in that atmosphere of unrest, civil unrest that was preceded by attack that was unresolved, then the governor had to say, okay, let there be curfew. But even in the implementation of curfew, you saw the interview by the chairman of Christian Association of Nigeria, Khan, in that local government area, who was saying things. And not just the chairman, other people are saying that. And this is one of the things I'm saying, that you saw a lot of duplicity and complicity on the part of the government, on the part of the military, that it seems as if the military had taken sides on this particular issue. And beyond that, when you saw that man make that viral interview, the military immediately invited him. Today, nobody knows the whereabouts of that man. And you see what I'm talking about. Yes, people are being killed. The person that dares to speak up, to tell the world what is happening, the military is attacking him, and nobody is doing anything. And you don't see lawyers, you don't see pro bono lawyers trying to pick up his bills. You don't see activists trying to take up the issue, trying to say, no, you can't intimidate this voice. And usually when people like that, maybe because of a viral interview they conducted or a viral video they made, the military picks them up. There are some community leaders in this Mangu Bokos area that have been in detention without trial for more than 3 years, just because they spoke up on this issue, just because they acted on this issue. And so this particular camp chairman, if he speaks up and the military picks him up and nobody talks about him, then imagine that you are in your community and some people come out to attack your community, and one leader in your community begins to say, no, this is what is happening in our community, and they pick him up and silence him. Another person comes up, they pick him up and silence him. Then people get frightened to the point that they are not even willing to discuss what is happening, and then it continues to happen.
So that means there's a lot of reorientation that needs to be done, because following the discussion we've had thus far, it looks like poverty is playing out, but as that is in the game or in the mix, we are seeing that there's a lot relating to ethnicity, tribalism, and religion in this.
Anywhere you see conflict in Africa, there are two major causes of conflict in Africa: identity and resource control. And in these active conflicts you see in Nigeria, identity is a huge issue. So that identity can be ethnic identity, it can be religious identity, or it can be a mix of both. And in the same issue, we see that there are people, they speak a particular language, they have a particular ideology, they have a religious because they chant before. Okay, if you see the pictures that have been posted on social media about these killings, right? You ask yourself, these people have AK-47s, they have RPGs, but when they have totally surrounded the community, they stop shooting and they start slaughtering with knives. And when you go into those communities, that's why if you see in the videos, people who have been macheted, people who have been beheaded, why are you beheading the man since you can shoot him with AK-47? Not that killing with AK-47 and killing with machete, that either of them is dead. But I'm trying to paint a picture that you see that when they are macheting, they start chanting their religious chants. And so you cannot take away the religious aspect of this. And in all of these issues, in one particular local government alone, I think in Mangu local government alone, 48 churches have been burnt down already, not one mosque. And all the communities that have been attacked are predominantly Christian communities. And then the attackers worship in a certain way, they practice a certain way, and they have a fundamental jihadist ideology. And by the way, it is not just in Nigeria, all over West Africa and indeed in the world, there is this resurgence of fundamental religious extremism, and it's on the rise, and we must discuss it, and Nigerians must know what is happening. And so they will start by kidnapping the traditional ruler, killing the traditional ruler, and they will sit back and see the reaction of the people. And eventually they will not stop with the traditional ruler, they will start kidnapping and terrorizing upwards to the time when they are emboldened to start wiping off communities and holding territories. And when this thing started in the Middle Belt, it felt as if it is play like play. More than 168 communities have been sacked. As we speak, it is happening in the southwest, it is happening in the southeast, and it has happened in parts of Edo State, it has happened in parts of Delta State. There is no guarantee that it will not happen in the south. And so when it usually starts happening, people will say, oh, it can't happen in my area. Wait a minute, it's going to happen in your area, and by the time it starts happening, there is nothing you can do about it.
Okay, so while we're talking about this, because according to reports a few days back, we did see on Guardian newspaper that a little over 2,423 people have been killed, while 1,872 persons has actually been kidnapped in 8 months under Tinubu. So that's why I asked earlier, because you did say that it looks like Tinubu has, is coming with a different show of force, or trying to make things, different. 2,423 people in 8 months. Is that some level of progress?
No, that's I think my point needs to be elucidated so that you understand it clearly. I am not saying that Tinubu is in any way better than Buhari or he is making progress, but I'm saying that whereas you had a terrorist sympathizer as your commander-in-chief, this particular one does not have sympathies.
So why do you think Buhari was a terrorist sympathizer?
His speeches, both during the campaign, before the campaign, is known. His attitude towards these things are known. His attitude when people are killed. In fact, anybody who is looking at the conflicts knows that the conflicts we are discussing this morning, the killings, the kidnappings, took a spike in 8 years. Fulanis have been here all around. They've been with us. But it seems as if they were emboldened. And if you see the kind of weapons they wield, you will see that this kind of weapons are not weapons you just, if you like you, Alex, try to go and buy AK-47. Let me see what will happen to you the next day. Try it.
But if you look at kidnapping happening around, would you also link it to this person?
No, because what you want to see is that there is an active group, that they have terror groups are embedded in cells, sometimes in sleeper cells in many of the regions, and they are active. There is no region in Nigeria that does not have active. And when you look at the describer, when you hear people being interviewed, for instance, the kidnapping along express roads, and they kidnap people on the roads and take them to bushes. When people are rescued and you begin to watch the interviews and listen to them describe the assailants. For instance, there was this religious leader, I think Uche, the leader of forgotten his name of, that was kidnapped in Abia State last year. I think the leader of the prelate of Methodist Church. When he was describing his assailants, he was one of the prominent people. But when you talk to ordinary people who are being kidnapped, and when they describe their assailants, what they look like, their modus operandi, you will see that their modus operandi fits into the perfect description of the people maiming. And so sometimes when they want to buy arms, they can kidnap for ransom as a means of raising money to continue their agenda. So kidnapping for ransom is as a reason for raising money, is a fundraiser for them. But this is not to say that every manifestation of insecurity in Nigeria can be traced to them. There are other pockets of insecurity. There are other people doing what they are doing. But today, my research work is focused on these people. Yes, I acknowledge that there are pickpockets here and there. There are other emergent armed groups in Nigeria operating that don't have ideological, leanings. But what they want is to make money and then kill enough people while making that money. So these things are conflagrated a bit, but if you begin to study them, you will find striking similarities, but you also find differences.
Let's talk about kidnapping quickly, since we are talking insecurity in schools in the country. If you just join us, this is narrative on Classic FM 91.1. There's always two sides to a story. So we have public policy analyst in the person of Chima Christian, trying to help us understand this more. If you watch some big TV stations and listen to some big radio stations across the country, you might have, in one way or the other, seen or heard Chima Christian discuss some of these things on these TV stations of radio. So he has had the opportunity of visiting these locations. He has visited these IDPs. He has had these conversations with the persons that are on the receiving end. So that's why we're getting some of this very vital information from him. So Chima, let's talk about kidnapping. We're seeing kidnappings happening so heavily. I know you spent some time in the capital city of the country.
Yes.
It's been one period. How is Abuja currently?
Well, then that's what you see now. If you remember, take your mind back to several years ago. If you wanted to be safe, all you had to do is to erect a high wall. And then after that, you needed to put broken bottles in high walls. Alex, you will still remember those houses in the cities and villages where rich men put broken bottles on their walls. But that was enough to keep the criminals away. But then it degenerated to the point that you have to have electric fences, wire gauzes. It degenerated further to the point where you'd have megats and dogs. Remember if you have megats and dogs, you are protected. And it wasn't enough. We kept allowing security to degenerate, and it got to a level where you needed police protection, and so everybody was struggling to make enough money to have police protection. And today, police protection is no longer enough. You need to have police protection plus bulletproof vehicles. And today we are telling our politicians and our political elites, there are issues you cannot solve at the individual level. If we do not solve insecurity collectively, don't think that saving up money to buy bulletproof vehicles can help you, because very soon the criminals will acquire the capacity to breach bulletproof vehicles, and bulletproof vehicles can be breached. Once they can pin you on the spot, they can set it on fire. There are a lot of things you can do to a bulletproof vehicle, and we have seen more than 4 attempts at elites within the last 7 or 8 months, and they have been saved by bulletproof vehicles, but their policemen were killed. And as the more they attack, the more they get emboldened, the more they understand, the more they research, how can we pin these people down? And very soon, say that I say it on your platform, it will not take criminals up to 2 or 3 years to find out how to breach the security protocols of a bulletproof vehicle, and they will successfully do that if you allow that. So what I'm saying now is that when these things started happening in the remote areas, people started saying, oh, if I can live in Abuja, no problem, I live in the capital city, it will not come to that. There is military barrack, there is this, there is police station there, so it doesn't concern me. And wait a minute, now it's happening in the capital city. You see what we're saying? Because it usually starts happening in the remote areas, and that's where they train themselves, that's where they do their NYSC. But immediately after they have done their NYSC in the bushes, they migrate to the town to do their masters and their PhD.
Hold on.
Yes.
Hold on. What do you mean by they're doing NYSC in the bush?
So when criminals start off, they start off by doing pickpockets. Nobody starts off by killing people. They start by doing pickpockets, and when they have done pickpocket enough, they graduate. That's their nursery school. They graduate to the primary school. They graduate to secondary school, and now they are degree holders. And when they graduate, they can start terrorizing people in remote areas. But eventually, they will get emboldened. Now they are PhD holders in terrorism. They can now start attacking cities, and that's what we're telling people, that when it starts happening in the villages, people can. You remember when people no longer go to village, they think that being in the city will help them. No, being in the city will not help you, because I've told you that all you needed 15-20 years ago was to erect a high wall and put broken bottles on it, and you are safe. Today you don't need that. Another example, we remember years ago when our parents used to tell us, don't go out at night, don't keep late nights, and everywhere you were, once it's 5 p.m. you start heading home, because once you can head home on time, you are safe. But today, in broad daylight, people are being kidnapped even in capital cities. So not going home early or not has nothing to do with this issue. Don't say don't greet people. Don't. Even in public transport, people are being kidnapped in public transport in capital cities. And these are the issues, and we're begging Nigerians, how long will this happen before we say enough is enough? How long before we say enough is enough? People who are in Rivers State today, if we don't address this issue, it will come to the state capital. And it has started coming to state capitals in many states. Why do we have this arrogance to think that it cannot happen to us? And yours also, you see the religious God forbid issue. You see things happening, but you think for some reason that it will not happen to you. It's so selfish, because we are not trying to solve the problem. We just want to exempt ourselves from it. And so you don't see people working hard on addressing insecurity. What they are working hard is to make sure that they are exempted from insecurity. And that is utter selfishness. That is why many people, as we speak now, many people are watching the news, and what they are thinking now is, how can I get military protection? How can I buy bulletproof vehicles? And by the way, why do you think you are safe in your bulletproof vehicles? When they see that they can no longer successfully attack you in the vehicles, they can come to your house. And will you start building bulletproof houses, dynamite-proof houses, bomb-proof homes? This is the problem. Nigerians are interested in solving the problems for themselves. They are not interested in making sure that the problems are collectively solved.
So do you think that with the statements being put up by the Minister of the FCT, Chief Nyesom Wike, the FCT is now wearing a new look when it comes to security?
Well, issues like insecurity does not yield to terms and political statements. People within the FCT are watching. The criminals are watching. The criminals watch the news more than we do. Yeah, you will find surprising. They research more than we do. They know more than we do. And they are very intelligent and sophisticated. Look, it takes a high level of organization to sustain an organized crime. These people, the people who plan this thing, don't have average IQs. They have more than high average IQs to plan and successfully evade for sometimes 10 years. Some of them have 10-15 year track record in criminality, and they have never been pinned down. That's to show you how sophisticated they are. So don't you think that one political leader can make a political statement and it frightens them? So when you make political statements, they sit back and watch to see if you have the capacity to carry out your threats. And when they see that it's just empty noise making, they will go ahead and do what they're doing. And that is why how you've seen, for instance, you've seen in Anambra State, when Governor Soludo tells people, go out on Mondays, there is no longer sit at home, kidnappers and terrorists will strike the next day. And so that is so now that Nyesom Wike have said this, I will tell Abuja citizens, be on red alert, because the terrorists might want to strike big to show that they still have the upper hand in Abuja. And that's so what I'm saying is that sometimes the political actors should learn how to do their work without noise. Take out the terrorists, don't make noise about them. But once they are taken out, the city will feel that something has happened. But we go around making noise, throwing tantrums here and there, and people are still being kidnapped.
So let's look at the solution quickly. If you're listening, I have Chima Christian here. He's a public affairs analyst or public policy analyst, and we've been talking about insecurity in the country. You can join the conversation, share with us your thoughts on WhatsApp. It is 07044994911, because I'll get to read your reactions as soon as possible. So, Chima, let's look at solution.
Yes.
And we can't overtalk solution, because despite talking about problems, we need to take a look at solutions. So, what do you think in your visits, in the studies you've carried out, in the research, in the conferences you've been a part of, and all of these things, and interactions you've had with other presenters and other government officials across the country, what are practical solutions that are short-term? I'm not talking about long-term. There are long-term,
yes.
But short-term, considering the number of people that are being killed and being kidnapped in the country.
Well,
what are the things we should look at?
The immediate thing I want to see is the disaggregation of command and control.
Okay.
So, because when you go to communities that are being attacked and you ask them, why are you being attacked? There is a gun truck 5 minutes away from the community. Do you know that if a community is being attacked today, that the soldiers who are stationed in a checkpoint 5 minutes away from the community cannot leave their station until they get an express approval from their commanding officer, who sometimes is in the capital city. So before they can respond to crisis, they must have to get approval. And when if you go out and respond without being approval, you stand the risk of being court-martialed. So no soldier will want to go and save a community and then lose his job or be imprisoned because they disobey direct order. Because before they engage, the rules of engagement are clear. Before you engage, before you dispel an arm, you must be instructed to do so. So they are actually sitting at the what do you call it? The crisis. What do they call this thing? The checkpoint. They sit there at the checkpoint waiting to be attacked. Or waiting now. So usually when they now receive express approval to go is when the attacks have finished. So in that sense, I support the call for state police, because local vigilantes can no longer cut it. Let me tell you, the effective range on a pump action rifle is 30 meters. The effective range of AK-47, depending on the make, is between 300 meters to 400 meters. So to paint the picture, a standard football pitch is 110 meters. So which means that if you multiply 3 standard football pitches, someone at the end of 3 football pitches can aim somebody at the other end and get them. But someone who has an AK-47 needs to come close to you before they can inflict little damage. So you arm up Amoteku or local vigilantes with pump action rifles. Sometimes in a given community, you have 14 to 20 local vigilantes, and they are armed with pump action rifles, and they are going to face, say, 200 fighters who are armed with sophisticated weapons. And so you see that in terms of weaponry, you must have superior weapons to the attackers. And so when criminals used to have machetes and toy guns, yes, you can deter them with pump actions. But when they now have military grade assault rifles, you will have to upgrade the security architecture. So instead of advocating for Nigerians to bear arms, I'm advocating for the government actors to bear arms at the state levels, so that the governor can control, and no governor can give an instruction to a police commissioner and it will be obeyed. No governor can give an instruction to army squadron commander and it will be obeyed. So governors are there, they receive credible threat alerts, but they cannot get the military to move, because the military only respond to the chief of army staff. The police commissioners only respond to the IGP, and so the state governors are helpless. So I think that we need to arm not just local vigilantes, but upgrade local vigilantes to the equivalent of state police and arm them with weapons that can help them ward off these assaults. Because if people have AK-47s and they are coming to attack a community, you cannot just be armed with nothing to defend yourself. That is one of the issues. Then 2, you have a lot of databases that Nigerians are not using. And by the way, we need to urgently proscribe them as terrorists and declare what is happening as an act of terrorism, because people cannot go on a Tuesday evening to carry out terrorist attack and go on Wednesday morning to withdraw their money in the bank. They can't do that. They can't do that. People cannot withdraw these monies that are being paid for ransom. Most of these monies, sometimes they go through bank transactions and nothing happens. And so you ask yourself, what is the essence of the control you have around banking? What is the essence of the money control unit? What is the essence of the NOBAN? What is the essence of all of these numbers? And so if we say that we have NCC, let them do their jobs. And then on the immediate, you also need to upgrade the police and the military, especially in intelligence gathering. But even beyond that, political actors need to have the political will to look at what is happening, because I tell you for free, people who are carrying out these kidnapping attempts and these things, they are very influential and sophisticated, and sometimes even lawmakers fear them. Sometimes even governors fear them. That many lawmakers are unable to go to television to say the truth. They are unable to. What they can just say is let people live peaceably with their neighbors. I can tell you, senators, a serving senator had been killed in Plateau. A community that he was representing was attacked, and he went to the community to hold a funeral service, mass burial, and then they came on the spot of the mass burial and killed people and killed the senator. And so you see a lot of senators, yes, they are answering honorable members, but they can't speak the truth because they are afraid of being kidnapped, because they have seen that there is high level conspiracy in this. And so because of that high level conspiracy, some people within political offices who could act are so terrorized to the point of, so if your lawmakers are afraid, some governors are afraid, even I'm beginning to suspect that in some cases presidents are afraid. What is happening in Nigeria? That's the question. Who is really calling the shots in Nigeria? And so people must ask that question. And has Nigeria totally fallen to the dogs and the baboons? That's the question you need to ask. Why do people know what is happening but they can't discuss it? Media houses know what is happening but they can't discuss it. Even some of our people, some people want me and say, Chima, this thing you are saying, I hope they will not kidnap you one day. Well, I'm not afraid of them, because these things have to be discussed. And those are some of the issues. We can say more, we can do more, and we have written recommendations to government actors. We've written recommendations to political actors. This is what we think you should do. And sometimes they say, yes, Chima, I agree with you, but there are a lot of political considerations. And political considerations is sometimes worry about their next election. Sometimes because some of the people who are doing this can remove a governor, that can put a governor.
So some of the solutions that has actually been looked at, which do you think is short-term?
Yes, is first of all, empowering the local vigilantes. Even if we need to empower our laws, let the nationals, because before you empower the local vigilantes, you can't import arms legally into Nigeria without clearing from the office of the National Security Advisor. And I have spoken with governors in the course of my research who say, even governors, I tell you for free, go and interview your governors. Your governors find it hard to empower their local vigilantes with ordinary pump action rifles. Some of the pump action rifles you see being kidnapped or seized by customs, they say, oh, customs has seized pump. Some of them are imported by the state governments.
But Chima, in your discussion with the governors that you've met over time, have they brought up any story about worries of high-handedness by local vigilantes? Because we've seen a lot that has been recorded, or a lot of reports coming from the fact that some of these persons have acted in high-handed ways somewhere, former cultists, somewhere retired, hard men and stuff. So isn't that also a worry?
No, that's also a worry, because even within the military, you still see excessive and high-handedness of the military. You see it within the police, and you know that I was part of the NSAS protests. And so you see high-handed anywhere you see an organized structure of people bearing arms. Even in the United States, people are still talking about the unfair treatment of the police to people of color. And so you often see this, but that will not deter us from having a security outfit. Then we can now say, okay, anybody that is caught doing this should be the punishment. Either you are demoted, either you are imprisoned, so there should be some set of reward for using your weapons illegally, because we have also seen vigilantes who go around when you have disputes with your family. You go and bring in vigilantes, and they come and torture you. Sometimes they torture people to death. So I have had those stories, and I won't pretend about it. So they exist. So but we will not throw away the baby with the bathwater. So we'll find a way to say there must be a security network that is working for the people. And when they now go around terrorizing the very people they have been meant to protect, we can now also demand accountability from them. So I agree with you that there have been reports. I have received those reports myself, and those are worrying, but those will not stop us from making all efforts to give security resources all the tools they need to prosecute the warfare against criminality.
Thank you so much, Chima Christian, for sharing your 47 minutes with us. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
I deeply appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate the frankness of the interview and your willingness to listen to the truth, because what I've seen is that some media platforms are interested in censoring what we have to say, because they sometimes some of the media platforms have been bought over, that regardless of what happens, they will keep reporting it as farmer header crisis, or they will keep reporting it as climate change issues, because they have interests who are actively telling them to keep reporting it as such. And for instance, you see that the United States Department of State keeps seeing what is happening in Nigeria as climate change, and that is willful blindness. That's willful blindness. And so there are a lot of media houses who receive funding from some of those NGOs to keep reporting these issues as climate change and farmer header crisis. So I appreciate that your platform is one of those credible platforms where people can come to and hear the truth and know what is really going on in their society. Thank you for the work you do.
Absolutely.